This is the Christ Pantocrator icon from St. Catherine's Monastery in the Sinai Peninsula. It's one of the oldest icons in existence. It dates back to the 6th century. And icons, whether of Jesus, as this one shows, or commonly of Mary and Jesus, or icons of various saints, icons are images that are intended to draw those who dwell upon them into deeper meanings behind the images. Icons are intended to function as windows to the divine. And many icons like this one are full of subtleties connected to the Christian faith. So here we've got this gold halo, which is very typical in icons, symbolizing the light or grace of God that shines through. In this icon, the left side of Jesus' face here is darker, symbolizing his humanity with all its pains and burdens. And his left eye is stern, reminding us that God is a God who judges. The right side of his face is brighter, reflecting his divinity. And the right eye is kindly, pointing to the mercy of God. Jesus' hand, this hand right here, is held in a way that's common in icons. The two lifted fingers symbolize both that Christ is fully human and fully divine. And then these three fingers touching are a symbol of the Trinity. The closed book in his left hand symbolizes the finished work. It is finished, that his birth, life, death, and resurrection have fulfilled the prophecies. And then on the cover of the book, you've got these three clusters of 3 dots. And the 3 dots, again, symbolize the Trinity. And then you have 4 of those clusters on the book that represent the 4 Gospels. Well, icons are intended, as we stare at them, they're intended to disorient us, to invite us to encounter the reality of God differently. They're not supposed to be mirrors that reflect back to us who we are, but rather they are windows intended to reveal to us something about God who is not made in our image. Speaking of image, that word which came through in the scriptures that Marianne read, the Greek word for image is ikon, right? And while we have these works of art that serve as images or icons of God, it is in Jesus that we have the full image or icon of God. Let's look at these texts again. In their case, the God of this world has blinded their minds, the minds of the unbelievers, to keep them from seeing the light of the gospel of the glory, who is the image, the icon of God. The Son is the image, the icon of the invisible God, the one who is first over all creation. And then Colossians 3, take off the old human nature with its practices and put on the new nature, which is renewed in knowledge by conforming to the icon of the one who created it. In this icon, there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, by barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all things in all people. As these texts teach us, Christ is our perfect image of God. Pondering Christ as the image of God matters because the images we gaze upon alter us. They shape us. Images are powerful. They form our allegiances. They secure our devotion. On a fundamental level, the images of what we hold sacred shape our social order, our society. And that is why, given the racist realities of our culture, even as these passages direct our gaze to the image of Christ, we have to reckon also with a different image, the image of whiteness. Not whiteness as a low amount of melanin some people have in their skin, but whiteness as an ideology, as a way of seeing the world and organizing the world and assigning value to people in relation to a color spectrum. Whiteness is a window through which to view the world in a certain way. Just as the holy icons of the church that have been painted through the centuries help direct devotion toward God, The image of whiteness fosters devotion as well. But this devotion is directed toward an alternate understanding of what is good, what is noble, what is enlightened, and what is holy. Take a look at this recruiting poster. This is a World War I Army recruiting poster. Destroy this mad brute. Well, the mad brute is a German soldier coming to America. But of course, the light-skinned German soldier is given black skin, portrayed as a vicious ape, as a way of equating the Germans with danger. And the brute holds a club that says culture in German. This dark one threatens white American women, and beyond that, it threatens the whole culture. This one will destroy our culture. It's just one example of how the ideology of whiteness charts color to morality and value. Contrast it with this image of Doc Savage. This is a cover of the Doc Savage children's magazine, this one from August of 1933. And the Doc Savage franchise eventually expanded into radio and later a nationally syndicated TV show. And my friend and colleague, Jess Wong, describes Doc Savage as a man's man, a paradigm of masculinity. He excels at everything he does, from neurosurgery and electrical engineering to art and exploration. And he carries out his adventures not just for himself, but for the good of the whole world. He is the defender of civilized society, a paragon of virtue. And as it plays out in the Doc Savage stories, he can tell just by glancing at others what their moral character is. And so when he encounters Mayans in Mexico, which is happening in this particular edition, he can tell from their golden skin, not shown here, but he can tell from their golden skin that they are somewhat civilized. That is, except for their warrior class lurking in the background of this image, who are made up of those convicted of violent crime. And they are depicted as having dark, brutish bodies in contrast with the golden colored skin and refined features of the good Mayans. Dark bodies are charted to criminal character. And while the golden skin Mayans are featured more positively, they are still lesser, represented as childlike and needing the teaching from the paternal white man to move towards becoming highly civilized. In contrast, Doc Savage's white body houses the epitome of intelligence, enlightenment, and goodness. Doc Savage, of course, is located in a long history that extends back for centuries before him and continues to unfold today. He is a representative of the icon of whiteness. Doc Savage is what the vast majority of heroes look like in Western culture. The white body, the white male body, becomes the location of intelligence, spiritual enlightenment, civil-mindedness, benevolence, goodness, order, holiness. In contrast, dark bodies are mapped to what is bad, stupid, ugly, disordered, uncivilized, unredeemable. Looking back many decades can give us a little distance to see more clearly. We can say, wow, can you believe how they were framing this during World War I or during the 30s? But of course, the same racial logic continues to play out today. What happens when a cover shot of Vogue magazine references the iconic World War I recruitment poster? Some suggest the parallels are coincidental, but the photographer's history of drawing on iconic images in her photography suggests otherwise. And consider this analysis by one commentator. Look at the images side by side and you'll see how many different ways they match. The positions of LeBron James and Gisele Bündchen, just the positions of their bodies, the way he holds his mouth, the color of his clothes, the color of her dress, the curls of her hair, the placement of her feet inside his and his arm around her waist, the basketball in the club hand and his hunched over posture. Here and in so many ways, what is dangerous and uncivilized and threatening and unholy, what that which was assigned to the German enemies gets carried forward, projected upon black and brown bodies, sometimes very subtly, and sometimes in ways that lead to death. White bodies came to be pre-assigned innocence, civility, morality, even holiness. And if all these positive attributes are assigned to whiteness, then Jesus must be white too. And now we're in a loop because a white Jesus underwrites the ideology of whiteness, and the ideology of whiteness reinforces the image of Jesus as white. The icon of whiteness seeks to draw us in, and it has done so quite successfully. It shapes the meanings we assign to people along a color spectrum. But the real Jesus isn't white. The point's not to establish exactly what skin tone this Middle Eastern Jew had. The point is that Jesus, the true image of God, did not and does not underwrite an ideology that charts skin color to a whole social order. To the contrary, the true Jesus, as the perfect icon of God, draws us into a completely different experience of meaning and reality. As we reflect and meditate on Jesus, his true image helps us to see more clearly the God who does not merely reflect back to us our own image. When we ponder the deep meanings of Jesus as the image of God, we are in the midst of the transforming and redeeming work of the Holy Spirit. And by the grace of God, we ourselves are formed into little icons of God as our lives come to reflect more fully God's glory and grace and love and care for the broken and the oppressed. How do we do this? How do we see Jesus more clearly? I would like us as a community to think about this. Some aspect of it has to be communal because I simply can't trust too fully that my current image of Jesus is right. I wonder what this work of coming to see Jesus more clearly might look like for you, for me, for us. I want to read a few words from Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech as we honor his legacies today. Toward the end of that speech, he said this: I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, with its vicious racists and with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification, one day right down in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. Well, friends, if you will forgive me, I want to dream a little bit beyond what Dr. King spoke of. I dream that one day the categories of little black children and little white children won't even make sense anymore. Not because we are blind to skin color or have forgotten our history, but because in my dream, the icon of whiteness will be cast aside as a way of designation and categorization and evaluation. And I dream that one day soon, the racial categories of black and white and brown and yellow and red and whatever other racial categories we have mapped to value and meaning won't even compute because the divine image has transformed us. So I want to close with these words again from Colossians. Take off the old human nature with its practices and put on the new nature, which is renewed in knowledge by conforming to the icon of the one who created it. In this icon, there is neither Greek nor Jew, circumcised nor uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave nor free, but Christ is all things and in all people.